Does your bowling grip fit? Or, I don't know, have you been bowling with the wrong grip? One of the best bowlers in the world on the PWBA Tour, Liz Kuhlkin, recently made a change to her fit. But we are not going to tell you why she changed. But what we are going to discuss with David O'Sullivan from Peak Performance is what is the checklist that you should have to tell you it's time for a grip check? Stay tuned and let's get right to it. Come on in, David and Liz. How are you today?
Hello, nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, 100. Absolutely 100%. And you know what? We're going to get right to it today. The very first question I want to ask, Liz, is what actually caused you to decide that you needed to have your grip, checked? I mean, successful on the PWBA Tour, U.S. Open champion, and boom, out of the blue, you decide you need to change your grip. What was it?
Yeah, as my career has gone on here, I'd like to say, I'm a little bit of a veteran. I've been out there, and I realized that unfortunately, part of having a career is some injuries from time to time, right? So, the first thing I noticed was just some wrist pain, and I think a lot of us, especially professionally and even tournament bowlers that bowl a lot, they chalk it up to, you know what, I'm just bowling a lot, a little fatigue, whatever it may be, but I was experiencing some wrist pain, not only my wrist, but more so towards the bottom of my thumb, which was creating obviously some strain while I was bowling. And as you know, we bowl a lot of games out on the PWBA tour, and I just felt like something was wrong. So, I took the steps in getting an MRI, and I realized that I had some injuries towards the bottom of my thumb where I was just going to need some help getting my thumb out of the bowling ball. So after I discovered some of the issues I was having, I went to my pro shop operator and I talked to him. That's one of the biggest things, is just having a conversation, because I don't know about you, I throw the bowling balls, I don't drill them. So I don't know much about fit myself, so really it was just about having a conversation with my PSO and kind of talking about where the pain is, because that's really important too, right? Everybody has different wrist pain. It could be on the other side of your wrist. It could be on the front, whatever it may be. So I had to talk to him about where I was having pain and the information that I found out about the injury I had. So that was the biggest thing. My wrist just started hurting, and I knew I had to do something if I wanted to bowl as much as I was going to in the future.
David, we've talked about this a lot, and to some of the signs that you should take, be aware of to go in and talk to your pro shop operator. But one of the things I want to ask you is, let's go back a little bit before we elaborate on that. How should a bowling ball actually fit on your hand?
$1 million question there, huh? Comfortably tight is a terminology I use all the time, as I am not comfortable with anything that's tight on me, clothing, anything. It's just not comfortable. So it's just kind of a weird saying that I say a lot. Basics, right? Like if you put your thumb in and you lay your fingers over the top of the holes, right, without stretching. This is very generically said, but basically the center of the fingertip joint should be sitting over the center of the hole. Now, if I was going to fit Liz's hand, right, and she hasn't bowled yet today, or she just woke up this morning, her hand's going to be stiff. Versus if I fit her after 25 minutes of her warming up, I'm probably going to get two different span numbers, different pitch numbers, all this kind of stuff. And as she's saying, as we age, our grip strength, our flexibility, range of motion just changes as we get older, as much as we don't like to admit it, right? And our hand isn't meant to be in a bowling ball and applying as much pressure and bowling as many games as she is, right? And over time, our hand adheres to that fit. And sometimes based on technique, environmental stuff, things that she's recognizing on the lanes that she needs to do physically, if she gets into a habit of creating a certain release motion over and over and she starts feeling strain anywhere, as a pro, for sure, you want to constantly have somebody that you can communicate with. When she's on the road, I'm sure she's still texting her PSO or talking to Cecil or both, some version of that. But yeah, the whole sizing is such a small piece of it, and it feels like in the pro shop, more often than not, the consumer feels like that's the biggest piece of the puzzle. It's not. It's all of it. You can't
Right.
have, it's whole sizing, span, as well as pitch. All of those things have to be kind of going in the right direction.
Okay, so I want a lead up question on that before I get to Liz, and I want to know exactly what she changed. Question again for you, David, to follow up on that. Can you actually bowl and not hurt and have the wrong grip? In other words, can you be bowling with the wrong grip, but you don't hurt and everything seems fine, but it really isn't probably the right grip for you? And I know that seems kind of an odd question, but is that possible?
Absolutely. I'm about to speak your language here because you own Pro Shop, right? So we have matchmakers and demo days, right?
Excuse me.
So all of my customers that are listening in here, this is me rolling my eyes at you guys. Love you all. When I fit your hand and take the time in 30 minutes and we go through the questionnaire and all these things and we, establish the difference between your middle and ring finger, and then you come in and you throw a 3-bagger at a demo day and you tell me you want your ball drilled like the demo ball. So yes, you can bowl once for 25 minutes with a ball that doesn't fit you and maybe throw a lot of strikes and do well. That's awesome. But like the whole idea is, to Liz's point, when you're doing it repetitively, 3, 4, 5 days a week, hour, 2 hours at a time, keep going, right? Over time, that your muscles and your ligaments and tendons are going to start to get angry at you.
Right.
Sure.
Absolutely. Now, Liz, so you had some pain. You had wrist pain, a little bit of a thumb issue at the bottom, which I want all the viewers to really listen to that, because you listened to your body. You hurt. And here you are trying to be at the top of your game, being, one of the best in the world. So can you tell us a little bit, what was your old pitch, if you don't mind, and what did you change?
Yeah. So one thing I want to add to, Carolyn, before I touch on that, is I had noticed too that I was squeezing a lot, which again, like I've had success doing that. You mentioned yourself, I won the US Open, all of that. So you don't really think very much on your end. Well, it's an issue that I squeeze. And I used to have, I kind of still have it, but I used to kind of have that burn mark on my thumb from squeezing. And I didn't mention this. I mentioned my wrist injury, but I had actually broken my thumbnail in 2023. And I have to say, Carolyn, I don't know if you've ever done this, but it was the most painful bowling injury I've ever had in my career. And it was because, simply put, your thumb, of course, unless you don't use your thumb is very important to exiting the bowling ball. And it literally made it so I couldn't bowl for a couple months. So I had that knowledge in my head that I had broken my nail in 2023. I made a little bit of a change then, but I realized not enough. So I'm going to be honest with you, Carolyn, the numbers and everything like that, I'm probably going to leave more so for you and David, because I am not familiar, as far as numbers and things like that. And that's just speaking truthfully. I really am a believer in just talking to my PSO, leaving it to him and telling him what I'm feeling. But I can tell you that one thing I needed to do, and I knew this, is I needed to make it so I could keep my thumb out of the bowling ball cleaner, right? So I didn't have to squeeze. And David mentioned it when he spoke a little bit. The tightness. So that's one thing as a bowler that I was like very uncomfortable with, and I don't think you realize how much tape you may need as a professional, as even just somebody who bowls on the weekend or in league. I didn't realize how tight my thumb hole had to be. So while I know I needed to make that change in my pitch, whether it was, again, I believe it would be reverse if you wanted to get your thumb out faster. And again, I apologize if that's wrong, but I knew that I needed to get my thumb out cleaner, and I needed to quit the squeezing because it was just something that was injuring me. And, I knew I didn't want to break my thumbnail again, right? That was one of the most painful things I'd ever been through. And for the girls that get their nails done in bowl, I'm one of them. And I just knew that I needed to find something that was going to get my thumb out cleaner and with less squeezing.
So I have a big follow up for that one because I saw her bowl after she made the change. But David, to follow up on that first, tell everybody why should we be using tape?
Man. Yeah, there's so much shrinking and swelling that happens. And what 95% of people that bowl do is they just adjust how tightly they grip the holes, right? Um, I know, Liz, you're from upstate, right? Like
I
I'm
am.
from the Northeast as well, right? And I grew up bowling in New York. And, most of the time the climate was on the colder side, right? And when I moved
Right.
to Florida, I had like the hardest time keeping my thumb hole as tight as I had grown accustomed to in a colder, less humid climate. So I always find that based on where you are, I'm always fascinated, like with people like you guys that travel the world and bowl, like how much variance you feel based on climate and humidity. Like I just cannot keep my thumb hole as tight as I'd like, but you're basically trying to fill in dead space where your thumb is thinning out, right? So if you look at your thumb, the biggest part is right here at the base, and then it gets thinner as it's getting to the tip. We're trying to fill in that space to prevent that so that we're more so gripping that way. Yeah, I mean, in layman's terms, the tighter we make the thumb hole, the less you're going to feel capable of squeezing and gripping it, which is exactly our ulterior motive as a pro shop owner, operator, whatever. We're trying to reduce that pressure because it's just going to come off your hand more consistently.
Right.
This is a super hot topic, even in golf. Depending on who you talk to, right? Like what amount of grip pressure is appropriate, right?
Right.
Tiger Woods has gone on the record and say he is squeezing the daylights out of that club, right? And who are we to tell him he's wrong?
Well, you know what? That is true. I mean, there are some tricks to the trade. I mean, when I bowled my best, I mean, I dug my fingers in way past the crease. I mean, but would I recommend that? Well, absolutely not. And again, I always say this: God was good to me. I didn't have any injuries, but what works for one doesn't work for the other. But we're going to get into the follow up with Liz because I want to talk about what I noticed after she made the change, and I want her to elaborate on that. But before we get to that, we have a new sponsor. Today's Bowlers Network is brought to you by Surfshark. Whether you're traveling to a bowling tournament, working from a hotel, bowling, watching bowling online, or you're in an airport or a coffee shop, Surfshark VPN helps protect your internet connection, online activity, and encryption. One of the things that makes Surfshark, oh, I should say Surfshark. Say that fast 10 times. Seriously, I love it though. Surfshark, especially useful for families and people with a lot of devices, is that one subscription can be used on unlimited devices, which is great at the same time, mind you. So your phone, laptop, tablet, and other supported devices can be covered under the same subscription. If you travel as much as many of us do, in bowling, protecting your connection when you're away from home is something worth thinking about. So check that out. Everything is available right here on The Daily Show on the Bowlers Network. For more information on Surfshark, check it out as we all travel. Liz, I have a follow-up. When you made the changes, I saw you at a tournament and I walked right up to you and I said two things. I said, oh my God, your hand is so far underneath it. It's in such a great position. So I want you to talk a little bit about that because old grip, I thought not, and again, this is not bad. It's just, I thought you got on the side of it a little more, which goes back to that squeezing. You were way underneath it, which was phenomenal. And you were using your legs more. So do you think that change not only loosened up your swing a little bit, but allowed you to use your lower body a little bit more than you had in the past?
Absolutely. And just for everyone to know, Carolyn is not lying. She came right from the back. I can't even believe how she was watching me because I believe, Alyssa was at the tournament as well. But she came in and she's like, Liz, and it felt really good. But, just to kind of touch on that a little bit, I think one of the biggest things that helped me as far as, my pitch change, just getting out of it a little bit sooner is my elbow, and I think that obviously goes hand in hand with the side of it, right? So one thing is, I think a lot of the viewers will know, I was a Nebraska Cornhusker. And one of the things that has just always been in my head is just having my elbow in the right place. And every time I've kind of had off years on tour, it directly correlated with the fact that my elbow, as Bill Straub would say, is you could drive a dump truck through it, right? So that just basically means, that my elbow is not where it needs to be. And I think having that pitch change, just being able to stay under the ball longer, really just directly goes hand in hand with your elbow being in the right place, and therefore having better leverage, which on the PWBA tour where you see the fronts hook a lot, let me tell you something, I need that leverage. And as far as, being able to use my legs more, I do think that went hand in hand with it as well. But I had also, especially this past year, made some physical changes with myself. I lost a little bit of weight, so I think too, that went with it as well. But it certainly went along with the fact that I was just able to have my hand in a better position.
I love that. Very noticeable. You bowled great afterwards. I love it. Keep working on that, obviously.
Thank you.
But again, we're going to go now back to David, because I'm going to watch his face cringe when I ask this. So I bowled a tournament this past weekend, and the gentleman I was bowling with, great guy. I mean, totally great guy. He is pounding the easy slide on his thumb. Okay. I want you to talk a little bit about what does that easy slide actually do, and what actually is easy slide, and what should it be used for?
Wow, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer this question, but I'd like to get it outlawed if it were up to me.
Me too, but I wanted you to say it.
And look, in terms of bowling, a lot of years ago, the product literally was meant to be used on your bowling shoes, which is no longer legal. Let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to repackage. It used to be called Easy Slide. Now it's called Master Slide. It used to say on the physical packaging used to help your bowling slide. But, look, in general, we sell very little of it in our shops because most of our customers we fit. So you shouldn't really need it, right? What I find is most people are jamming their thumb into a hole that's too small. More often than not, they're telling me that it's tight on the sides, which is telling me they have a very oval thumb and a very round thumb hole. But frankly, it makes you increase pressure because it's trying to slip off of your thumb. You're putting this thing on your hand that's literally making it slip off while you're carrying the heaviest weight, right? So you're holding on to this object that we're coming on every week telling you to stop squeezing, and you're using this thing that's making you squeeze it. In general, it's something that once you understand or explain properly by your pro shop operator, it's something that in terms of gripping purposes, you should not be having to use at all.
I totally agree with you 100%. I'm not a big easy slide fan, never was, never used it. There's plenty of slide soles and heels out there to help you with your shoes today. Again, if you're using it on your thumb, I want to reiterate, probably not supposed to be using on your thumb. Talk to your pro shop operator about maybe opening up that thumb hole in the areas that you may feel it's rubbing or sticking just a little bit. But practice will make perfection. And it does take a little bit to create that feel of getting that thumb out of the ball, which takes me back to the follow-up. Liz, you made these changes to get your thumb out of the ball a little quicker. Now, it always takes time, but I do want you to talk about, tell the bowlers out there, because everybody wants instant, oh my God, I want it to work. I want it to work. Well, that's not how it works sometimes. It takes time to create the feel you want. About how long did it take you to get used to what you were trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so truthfully, I made this change right before the 2025 season. So I'm going to be honest, Carolyn, that this is just me, transparent. I probably shouldn't have done it. And what I mean by that is I shouldn't have done it before, the women's tour. Maybe something slight. But, I would suggest to everybody watching, when you're going to make a change, try to do it where you have a lot of time to kind of work with that change, right? As you just mentioned, like when I'm going out and bowling professionally on a schedule that's pretty tight, we have, 8 to 10 stops, it's hard to get used to that change and then also be competitive at the same time. So I would say from the time I did it, in May of 2025, I would say it took me a good, I don't know, 5 to 6 months to really like get used to it, understand how it changed my ball roll. At that point, you know, the way your bowling balls are drilled, right? So your pap is going to change. All these things like go into correlation. And that's another thing that was really important for me that season on tour is I had to change the way I drilled a lot of my bowling balls, and I had to review my ball motion and my arsenal. And I think that's something that I'm sure you're going to touch on too with David is that when you do some of these changes, your bowling ball is going to roll differently, and it's going to affect some of your ball motion and when you throw bowling balls a certain time. So to really get the full aspect of what it means to change your grip, it probably took me a good 6 months to get everything in order.
Carolyn, you're on mute. Also, really quick, while she's unmuting herself, I did want to comment on this because I didn't get a chance to, but Liz, how good does it feel as a player when you are making changes to your game and or your fit and or your body, when someone as accomplished as Carolyn comes up to you and notices it, right? Like that's super awesome. Also,
100%.
Kudos to Carolyn. And if anybody's asking if her eye is still sharp and picks up on things, physical, ball motion, whatever, the fact that she immediately noticed it and felt the need to come tell you. But I think you're also hitting the nail on the head here with your body is changing, your grip is changing, and all of these things as you start to implement right into your regimen, your game, your practice, right? Like it's going to change some small percentage how the ball's coming off your hand, which is going to change some small percentage your ball reaction, right? And now you have to retrain your instincts of what to do with that information, right? So
Exactly.
For those of you out there that are making changes either to your game or your fit, sometimes I know from my customer standpoint, it's like, all right, we're going to make this fit change. And they go out and it's like within 3 shots, they think they're fixed or it's done. And that's not how it works. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. It might take 7, 8, 9, 10 times for you bowling before you have actual feedback from me of like, what does it feel like? What do the results look like? Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, folks, bear with us. Carolyn's having some technical difficulties on her end.
There we are. You know what happened? I'll tell you what
that?
happened. The same thing that happens all the time when I'm doing it from my phone. I got a phone call.
Every time.
When the phone fell.
And I'm trying to get it. No, I clicked off the phone, the call, and then boom, it muted. So sorry about that, but I am back. And that was a fantastic question. But again, I want everybody out there to know that when you make a change, it's not going to happen overnight. You have to really give yourself time to, obviously, it's trial and error. First of all, anytime you're talking about pitches, thumbs, span, it's trial and error. I mean, it could take even longer than that to really get the feel that you want. Especially when you're going through being on tour, trying to be the best in the world, and you're trying to create a ball motion that you think is very productive, or you're that 14, 15, 16 age and you're going through a growth spurt. So many things can change during this process of finding the correct grip for you, David, what are a couple of the, I'd say, warning signs that you would tell everyone to watch for and maybe know it's time to check that grip?
Great question. Yeah, Jay has it on here. If my bowling ball fit correctly 10 years ago, does it still mean it fits correctly today? Right? I feel like these two questions go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to Jay's question is no, it doesn't always mean it still fits correctly. Like to Liz's point, like 10 years ago, I was 120 pounds heavier. My grip strength was different. I was younger. My hand bent more, right? So all of these things factor into how the ball comes off my hand. The environment was a little bit different. Some basic things we kind of already touched on, checking for span, but in terms of playing, what I'm looking for, one thing that I tell my customers a lot is to listen to your ball hit in the lane. When it sounds like abnormally loud, especially in relation to what it used to sound like, that probably means it's coming off your hand a little bit different. What I'm looking for is parallel to the lane. I don't want it up. I don't want it down, in very, very generic terms. But I also look for key things when I'm watching somebody bowl that kind of tell me that something isn't quite right, or we can improve something somewhere to relieve pressure.
You know what? I like that analogy, but just quickly, so explain to everybody what parallel to the lane really means.
Yeah,
Because
so
I do think people think that, I like to pitch the ball a little bit out onto the lane. That's not bad, but it's
Sure.
still parallel to the lane. So please explain that just a little bit.
Yeah, great question. So Mika Koivuniemi, who's really tall, right, and has been, everybody always knows that he created loft, right? But his ball really off his hand, if you watched him from the side view, when it was traveling off of his hand towards the pins, the ball flight was parallel with the floor. It wasn't going towards the ceiling or towards the ground. Now, there are times where Liz, environmental, right, where Liz is talking about the front of the lane hooking early on the PWBA tour, where there might be an advantageous ball reaction she could accomplish by creating a little bit of loft, where she's intentionally trying to have the energy go a little bit more towards the ceiling so it goes further out in the lane, so that she's actually shortening the pattern. She's bypassing the part of the lane that's transitioned the most. But we want to build a grip for any bowler that has the ability to do these things if they want to do them, right? So I always talk about that, like if Scotty Scheffler wants to hit a cut or a draw, right? Like he has the ability to do it, but his preferred shot shape might be X, where, Liz tends to get the ball onto the lane, let's say a little bit sooner than I want to. That's her preferred shot shape, and she's incredibly good at it. So everybody's got their own deal.
Right. I totally agree with that. It's amazing. Just we're going to wrap up here with one thing. Liz, if there is one thing you could tell the people watching today, what would be your advice to them about whether it's, physically taking care of yourself, getting your grip checked? What is something that you would tell everybody to, as they're trying to improve their game? What should they pay attention to?
Absolutely. I think that's something that I wish I listened to myself now a little bit more when I was younger. I think one thing is when you're young and you're maybe just out of college, we have a great farm system now with collegiate bowling for women. When you're in your 20s and you just get out of college, you never think that you're the one that's going to be going through injuries, that you're the one that's going to start having wrist pain. And it's crazy to see, Carolyn. I don't know, from watching Alyssa, you look around, a lot of these young girls are already wearing Genesis tape and all this different kind of tape on themselves, wrapped up like mummies. And, I think my biggest piece of advice to anybody that wants to take their bowling to the next level, that even just bowls in league a couple times a week, is just listen to your bodies. Don't always chalk up the pain that you have, that you're feeling, to just, wear and tear. I'm bowling a lot. It all leads to something else. I felt like, I don't want to say waste because that's not a good word, but I lost some of my years just kind of chalking it up to that. And it all kind of is like a domino effect, because if you don't pay attention and listen to those aches and pains, those are signals your body is giving you to listen to yourself to see if you need to make a change. And it will domino affect other things, like you had said, having a little bit of a bad habit with coming around the side of the ball. You can save a lot of those issues if you just have a conversation with your pro shop operator. And literally, that's all it takes. You don't even have to get into the technical side of things, because as you can see, I'm not super good at that. I just had a conversation with my PSO. And if you have a great PSO like I do, they come out, they watch you bowl, and they can have a conversation with you about it. And it's really that simple. So if I had to give a piece of advice, I would just say to listen to yourself, because you know your body better than anybody else would.
Oh my God, what a great way to wrap this up. As always, thank you, Liz. Continued success, one of my favorite bowlers on the PWBA Tour. David, always a fountain of knowledge. And thank you to everybody for joining us here on The Daily Show, right here on the Bowlers Network. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you again to Surfshark, VPN protection when you are online. So check them out as well, and we will see you again on The Daily Show.